Alrighty. I'm going to do the same song and dance as before, where I'm going to make sure that we have all the live streams functioning. And the reason for this is to make sure that we have this discussion properly projected, or I guess broadcast, so that we can basically ensure that the promise that I made is upheld. So it looks like that is working. Great. So with that out of the way, hi everybody. My name is Alan Max Axelrod. I am, among other things, the campaign lead of a group called No Ameren Shutoffs. I was asked by one of our liaison organization's members to actually go over a recent engagement with the police in an office setting, and to basically use my position as a white male to have a voice that people who are misogynist may listen to. I'm under no illusions about the partisanship and the general vitriol associated with this, but I will offer my voice. For those of you who don't know, I was the police liaison during my union strike back in 2018. Now, a police liaison does not always work on behalf of police, and in my situation, I definitely did not work on behalf of police. I was somebody who, on behalf of my union, did what I thought I could to keep the police off our backs unless if we wanted them to be on our backs. And that is specifically to say that only people who risked arrest were people that I did not engage with at all as a police liaison on behalf of my union. I was to protect everybody else. So anybody who occupied a building, I was not involved. And anybody who was on the picket line, I was running to get to their position if they ever needed me to. False alarm or no. Subsequently to that, I was a police liaison for some black and brown students, where we had a particularly insightful engagement with the police, where they actually called for civility and then were themselves giving backhanded remarks. Here is an example.
We're just explaining the laws to you, explaining to you how about being civil. That's about it, okay? Maybe when you get out in the world, you'll understand that. That's a foreign concept.
So that recording, first off, 2004 Illinois State Supreme Court case with a friend of mine, Martell Miller, established that you do not have to have the consent of police to record them when they are operating in their capacity as police. And that particular recording was from a February, I believe, 2018 or 2019, it's the years blurred together, engagement where the police officer was upset with me because I actually pointed out that the very reason he was deployed, he was self-defeating because he was shouting while trying to tell nonviolent protesters to keep the volume down, and doing so right outside of the event that was being disruptive. And so the backhanded remark on the second half of that basically came in. And I bring this up not to go, oh look, I was treated so poorly by the police. I bring this up because it's important to understand that a lot of people who have working relationships with the police only see the positive sides of the police and not the things that they do when they think no one will hold them accountable. And this isn't a single instance that I'm making a big hubbub about. I was also the police liaison, again, for black and brown students when in the news, even, they talk about how there were 20 local officers near the protesters right before the protest began. And that's a very weird way to phrase that, because the police actually surrounded the protesters right before then. I was the police liaison at that event on behalf of the organizers too. The police chief for the Champaign Police Department was not there, but the police chief for the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign was, and they thanked me for my work during this engagement as well as the activists. It's an incredibly rare thing when both sides are very happy with what you did. So let me explain what happened there, and then I will get into the video that I was asked to look at. So what happened was we had a group of a few dozen activists who wanted to, without getting in front of a parade, to protest a parade. They were going to stay on the sidewalks. It was completely within their rights. Upon being profiled by the police, they were not, for example, doing anything to indicate that they were going to disrupt the event. The police formed a line along the parade route and also came up onto the sidewalk. And one of the police officers gave a remark to one of the black and brown activists that gaslit that person and basically started to cause an escalatory response. It's how the police tend to try to weaponize trauma through very dishonest things. Imagine being surrounded by the police and then being told that you're doing it to protect the people you've just surrounded. Because that's basically what happened. And that officer was never held accountable for that. And the thing is, that protest went off without a hitch. After that point, I was able to basically talk to the police officers up chain of command and tell them, this is not how you facilitate de-escalation. Let's figure something out. And the police then went to the other side of the street and just sort of mirrored our movements. And eventually they came over to our side of the street, but at that point, most of the people didn't care. The point was they weren't surrounded anymore. And I bring this all up because the thing is, the police don't think that I'm ever going to hold them accountable, which, you know, that's debatable. Look forward to the municipal elections. However, the thing is that this is how they treat people who have no institutional power. And when I was asked to review, the video that we'll be going through, it was actually the case that a lot of these same sort of familiarities came up, where on the face of it, if you had to put in paper in a report what you did, it would look like you did nothing wrong. But the nature of it is that you have basically gaslit somebody. The right understands what gaslighting is, after all, just as the left does. So why do we make it okay for the people that are, on paper, some papers anyway, supposed to protect and serve? So I'm next going to switch over to the video feed, going to play segments of the video, and then when I have something to say, I'm going to pause the video, and then I'm going to comment about it, and basically harken back to the points that I was making earlier. And we'll do that for the entire length of the video. It's going to be a very uncomfortable watch. I hope you bear with me on that, but overall, this is more about helping somebody who was not listened to and was gaslit by the police being heard. More so than having a high viewer count or anything like that. Otherwise, I'd be doing a bunch of stuff on the social medias right now, and I am not. This is more about making sure that this analysis exists and that it can be of use to the people who were mistreated. So with that, we're going to switch over to the video and we'll get started. I apologize, the audio is not well balanced in the video. It is, of course, as both libertarians and socialists will talk about, a government camera which isn't of any sort of cinematic quality or considerate to production value. So with that, let's begin.
She says she wants Essie here instead of you, I guess.
So I'm out?
So you're out, unless you want to sit and view from in there. You're more than welcome to do that if you want to do that.
Why don't I just do that? That way.
Okay.
That way we have the same kind of situation, and you just tell me where I go.
Thank you. Come on in.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry for the confusion.
No, that's okay.
All of our people who weren't.
I'll watch it.
She can watch it.
That way.
Okay, thank
If there's
you.
any concern.
So I'm going to switch back over to the video because there was a part in the beginning where the police officer said to a person that they weren't needed for the discussion, or that it was inappropriate that they were there. I'm not terribly... I don't find that detail particularly important. However, a note came up from the people who produced the video basically saying that it was requested that that person who was told to leave should be there. Now, that person may be observing from somewhere else out of frame. I'm not too sure, and, you know, not knowing what the COVID rules are could be something there. However, it's worth remembering that police are allowed to lie while they are doing their work, which is very unfortunate and worthy of heavy scrutiny. That said, I'm going to continue playing the video.
I have no idea. Is this it, I guess? What is this for them? Ooh, it's cold in here. Well, that's a tactic. Remind everyone that I am recording this for our benefit.
So that part's actually worth noting as well. I don't know if you saw the temperature aspect is difficult. The small room is concerning in the age of COVID, but again, government offices don't often have their own infrastructure to accommodate the new realities of COVID. I for one, would not have appreciated sitting in chairs this close to people. But the unpleasant smell, that part's important. What we need as a trauma-informed society is to actually understand and, what we need is a trauma-affirming society. And one of the things that, even if that unpleasant smell was something that other people enjoyed, smells actually can be disruptive to people in ways that, you know, normal people may not even think of. And that's part of the reasons why people with trauma struggle so much, is they have to pretend a lot of things don't bother them as much as they really do. And I just thought that that was important to note. I don't think that that was necessarily the intention expressed by the makers of this video. And, you know, there's obviously discussion about what accommodations you need and to have some sort of process for that. And I don't know if that exists here. It's, again, probably exogenous to the intent of what I was asked to cover, so I'm going to resume playing the video now.
One of our
Is all of this about that incident?
I'm going to try not to get close to you.
Okay, that's fine.
The problem is I'm trying to go through what the screenshots have here.
I'm recording for
That's fine.
Not too close.
Video and audio recording, is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay. You can sit wherever you like. So if you want to sit there, you can, or if you want to sit there, you're more than welcome. I guess we'll keep our masks on so that we kind
let's
of...
try to stay as far away as we can.
Okay, so the actual complaint that you made, you didn't fill out the form, you just attached your statement that you read to City Council, correct?
Yes, I hadn't had time yet for our team to put together a report, but I brought it with me.
Okay.
Screenshots.
Okay. You don't have screenshots at all for me?
We do have screenshots.
Okay.
In fact, I can go through page by page on this. The third page is of this packet I just handed you, and contains the first post that he made, and then our Racial Justice Coalition co-chair Regina Matthews' response, which he deleted.
Okay, but it's his page, so he can delete whoever he wants, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, have you talked to Facebook at all about these posts?
So we've reported the ones that were, that we felt were close enough to the line that Facebook might take action. They did disappear, but we don't know, but all the conversation disappeared and was replaced by a different post, so.
Okay.
So we don't know who all did what.
Okay. But it doesn't, usually Facebook, if you send something to Facebook, Facebook sends it back saying, yes, that page has been investigated and there is something there. You've not gotten anything from Facebook saying that
I
they
actually have not looked to see since the posts were taken down, and that was our concern. I didn't check through yet to see, because we are reporting things all the time, every night. So we get so many responses from Facebook, I did not track back through.
Okay. I will, at some point in time, make copies of that. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. Because I've got the stuff that we have here, and I don't know who sent, if...
Well, let me go through the packet if I could.
Okay.
I'll explain kind of how it went down. So his very first post that he made it at 7:58 a.m., which was the morning afterwards. And he had an interaction with a woman who is not in our org on the square. She does have... one of the reasons why she's not a member of our org is because we do not allow people to do ad hominem attacks per se, or trying to do that kind of stuff that provokes, because what happens is it creates more danger for us all. And so we don't even allow yelling at our protest. We do try very hard to play just top 40 music and just sit there and let people yell whatever they want at us, other than to wish them a nice day. So the first post that was made said from his site, and we don't know for sure that it's him or not. You would have to.
You say there's no name that's even associated with this at all.
That's right. And normally in a proper investigation of these, you would contact Facebook and you would ask who.
I would, but here's the problem with Facebook.
Right.
It has to be a criminal complaint. I can't get a warrant from the state's attorney's office unless it's a criminal complaint.
I understand.
This is an internal investigation. I can't get anything from Facebook based on that.
Okay, so...
If it was a criminal complaint, I wouldn't be handling it. It would have been kicked over to the Illinois State Police.
That's fine.
Okay?
So someone on his site wrote, I've debated on posting this, and I've come to the conclusion it's well past time to show the true colors of some of these people. This was at 10:20, roughly at 5 p.m. I kid you not, I was verbally attacked on the Macomb Square while off-duty in plain clothes while waiting on my daughter's tumbling class because of my full-time job by a woman I don't know. I was actually sitting in my personal car minding my own business when she approached me, had the eerie feeling of the recent shooting in L.A. This woman took pictures and appeared to record me in my personal vehicle during it. The karma of it all, twice she unknowingly dropped her purse outside of her vehicle and left it, which I returned to her both times, but I'm still the pig, and she's still going to steal my car because she paid for it. She denies saying that. Just so we are on the same page, that's a caliber of people protesting. You have the wrong impression if you think I can be intimidated, and then there's two laugh emojis, to which our Racial Justice Coalition co-chair, Regina Matthews, responded. Now, there were up 210 responses to that and 53 shares of his post. So it was shared 53 times to other people or other walls or groups, and there was over 210 people interacted with that, of which a few of them were ours, but they did not, as far as we know, did not click and do that reaction. Regina Matthews responded with, I would like to point out that the one bad apple doesn't, should pertain to everything if you use it. You debated on whether to post, but you didn't even wait a day. The woman in question doesn't represent our organization that puts on these protests, and we condemn this behavior. But now our protesters are more scared of the threat of violence it seems to have provoked. If you would like an honest opinion of our peaceful protest, please ask Jeff Hamer. And that woman had come and told me about the incident that she had. She took responsibility for her part in that. She claimed that she was on the square.
Let's talk about this real quick, Heather. I'm going to try to move you around. I know you have an hour lunchtime?
Well, my boss gave me the afternoon off,
Okay.
so we can take our time on this.
Well, I can't because I've got other appointments that I have. I thought you were coming at 5, so I've got other appointments stacked up too, okay?
Okay.
So here's my question. With the original post, what is in the post that you think would be against our department policy or would be illegal in that original post? Because it seems that you do bring up a lot with the post in your complaint.
The fact that he posted it at all on a tactical arms site and is using dehumanizing language.
What's the dehumanizing language?
So the dehumanizing language is when, just so we are on the same page, that's the caliber of people protesting. So he's generalizing us all out as being a person who calls cops pigs.
Okay.
That is not accurate.
Sorry, I'm trying to get on Facebook here to look and see what he has on his stuff.
He had pulled it all down, so there's nothing.
So there's none of that stuff is there?
None of that stuff is there now.
Okay. But
these
these things here, I've got another set here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what all is still up there from that.
Okay.
But
Because I've got, some of this that I've got is not included on yours. It looks like you've just included Regina's.
So
and maybe some of your people's
Yes,
stuff.
I can explain. We only included the things for which our team tried to interact and tried to divert the discussion into talking about how we do our protests, but after all of our stuff was removed and he only allowed the responses from some of the people who are frightening and quite hateful and have been giving us a hard time and has a propensity for violence and a past history with violence with women.
How do you know that?
Since escalated again since post. So he has since changed his name on his Facebook or come up with a different Facebook page, and now he's back harassing us again when he had finally been leaving us alone.
Have you reported that to Facebook?
Yeah, we sure did.
Okay, and what happened with that?
We're still waiting for them to respond back on that one.
Okay. What are those posts that he's posting?
He's not crossing the line, he's just calling us names and being a jerk.
Which is like free speech, right?
So,
I mean, here's my thing, Heather. I mean, I read through all of these posts. I've been through all of these posts, forwards, backwards. And I need your help trying to understand what you're talking about because,
okay.
I mean, this is such a
If I
large...
could speak without being interrupted for a little bit.
Well, and that would be fine if you would stay on point for me. I can't go out and go out.
All right, so there's a couple different things to note here. The first one is some folks who are watching may be very confused as to why I'm streaming this. So again, I'm going to mention that I was basically asked by a member of an organization in the No Iron Shutoffs group to basically go over a recent encounter with the police and enumerate some, or basically provide some analysis. So I'm not necessarily going to speak about everything that's happening, but I do want to bring up a few points that I've noticed here. Before the remark about, you know, the person in here identified as Heather having to only have a lunch hour when Heather identified that actually, no, the entire afternoon has been available. There were 3 interruptions before that. I'm not going to do like a rigorous tally of all the interruptions because they happened so much. You've kind of seen that. Even Heather noted that she was being interrupted a lot. But one of the things that is pretty important is that backhanded remark that the officer made. Remember, this is to collect information about a complaint. This is not a debate. The main thing that you would expect of someone who was doing their on-paper duty is to basically not accuse somebody who has been or is stating that they have been harassed online, that they are jumping from topic to topic when the officer, at least in my opinion, was the one steering from topic to topic, but the main thing is that some people might go, okay, this is an online argument being brought into this space. What's going on? Well, the what's going on part will be made clear later in the video, but from my experiences working with folks who are femme-presenting, traumatized, and felt that their safety was at risk, one of the reasons that you would go to the police, even if you do not like them, and even if you want that structure to be abolished, is because currently that community doesn't have other structures yet. That takes a lot of organizing work to facilitate, one. But two, the other thing is that you have to have a paper trail of the engagements and the concerns in that front. Otherwise, when you come forward with something more serious, you risk being ignored. But if you show that this behavior has been concerning to you for a long while, it makes it easier for the subsequent engagement to basically go, and now this has happened, which crosses a very firm line, please act immediately, right? So that's kind of the basis for it. It's to provide a preponderance of the evidence, even if it may be preliminary in nature. However, the conversation as it continues, well, I'll just keep playing it.
I may not be able to stay on the point that you want me to stay on, because I am a trauma survivor as well, so I need time to be able to do an interview as a victim. All right?
I understand that, but
if you could with your...
You need to, Heather, you need to tell me what is the complaint that you have here.
Our complaint is that him posting a comment about our protesters on his own tactical site after we have been already made your department aware of our concerns and fears for our safety. We have repeatedly had to have some of these people investigated because of their harassment of us online and showing up in person. It has caused our organization to feel intimidated now, to feel like they can't trust calling the police if we have a problem, because they're worried that some of the others who have commented might be the ones who respond. It caused a loss of trust in your agency. It caused a loss of trust in our members. It caused a lot of our members who are victims of male harassment to be re-traumatized. And so if you can look at the impact of this from a survivor's perspective, you might understand how having a bunch of men with guns posting negative comments about us and posting...
You're basing it off of an assumption that you're making because you're going to their Facebook pages and looking at that. I don't see anybody that's posted anything as a gun or anything else on this particular thing right here, as far as what you gave me. Because you've edited your portion of it. I have the actual posts here of everybody else on the...
We haven't edited any of the screenshots at all.
All right, so there's already a couple things to talk about. One is at least how it has happened in Urbana when filing a police report or complaint. There really hasn't been so much a debate on the merits of the information that's being presented. It's processed and they move on. That's not to say that the Urbana Police Department is the best or that they are inscrutable. They are certainly not. Most people who have been paying attention to them this summer will recognize that. The main thing is that this officer is basically providing a pushback which is preventing him from actually processing the information that is the reason that folks are here. Almost serving like a paralegal or legal counterbalance to the complainant, which is not good. The other thing that's noted here is that the police officer did make a statement about things being edited. Now, it's entirely possible that someone could misspeak. Like, let's first acknowledge that. However, usually when someone misspeaks and then they're told that they say something, they'd correct. The police officer here, as we continue the video, does not. And the note that the video basically said was that nothing was edited. So there's not really a heck lot of additional things to talk about there. But except that the police officer's demeanor did not appear to change or to be more restrained upon receiving information that he is corresponding with a survivor, and that strikes me as at best a severe lack of situational awareness from somebody whose discipline mandates that. But that to me would also potentially read as bad faith if I had to basically give my assessment of it, and so we'll continue playing the video.
Right, but you just give them
Okay, let me give you an example of one right here. Says the biggest problem is that we have...
Okay, so there, upon basically being told that nothing was edited, the officer said, no, but you've just told me what your people have said. That is basically, as I remarked earlier, an acknowledgement of the fact that maybe he misspoke or was caught. But the other thing is that now there is distancing language, right? Your people, as opposed to whom? People who were involved that you work with or what have you. There are other ways of saying things without it being distancing language. Some people is less distancing than your people, right? But anywho, that's parsing jargon in a ruralish area that may not have to deal with this a lot. I'm not quite sure, but let's go ahead and continue playing the video and just, analysis as things continue.
We've tolerated this bullshit for too long, hoping it would just go away. It's time good, hardworking Americans stand up to the scumbags that have become so entitled and let them know we are not putting up with this shit anymore. Someone else...
Okay, so what is wrong with that one? Is that a threat directly to your organization? To you?
That is calling us scumbags is a dehumanizing language that he is allowing to persist on his wall that was provoked by his comment. Now, if you see no problem with that, then we might as well end this conversation now.
I'm trying to understand what the context that is in there.
Our impact is the fear of our protesters, realizing that one of our police officers will sit there and dehumanize us on his own tactical website in front of the people who already have a propensity for guns, use dehumanizing language, and that impacts our people's willingness to even use their First Amendment rights.
Okay, but then you're saying that these people do not have First Amendment rights to say what they want to say.
That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying that at all, and don't put words in my mouth.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm telling you that based on what I see here, I do not see anything that is...
So I'm pausing it there because there the officer is basically caught red-handed with some conduct and denying that conduct. That is dishonest, right? The officer basically said that the First Amendment rights of the other folks were things that Heather disagreed with, and that's not what Heather said, and Heather expressed that wasn't what she was saying. The important thing here is that broadly categorizing speech as First Amendment speech without addressing any sort of intimidating factors there is of note in so much as one, why is the police officer providing pushback on this speech? Is it because he didn't want to write a charge? Like, he could take notes differently and not give those remarks. The other thing is that there is this whole analysis, or I guess chart, of escalating language towards extremism and violence. And one of the first things is dehumanizing a group of people. And so the concern of dehumanization, when expressed, I mean, honestly, if a police officer is not acknowledging that, that's a problem in and of itself. If one wanted to be a really benevolent police officer, you would basically say, yeah, that happens to us anytime someone calls us pigs, right? But the thing is, again, like, I'm not for the police in any capacity. I'm just providing some context, I guess, to the things that we're watching. So the main thing here is the officer did not apologize for what he did there with putting words in Heather's mouth. He also then sort of shifted the conversation over to another topic, where now he is talking more about the point that I guess he wished he made instead. So we're going to continue playing the video.
Is a direct threat to you or anyone in your organization, based on what I have here.
Right, and this complaint is actually a complaint that your officer is acting improperly and
But you don't even know that it is our officer. You're just basing it off the fact that it's his site.
Except that he uses I statements and relates what happened on the square and speaks at himself, and then admits that he had a conversation about her, and she had come and spoke with Officer Hamer, and then he and I had a conversation, and he confirmed that it was Officer had that. Okay. And so Howard owns this site, and even though all that is circumstantial, that is still enough for us to feel intimidated and be fairly confident that this was Officer when he spoke to, who he empowered to use I statements about that initial conflict, which you could actually look up on the square on one of the cameras.
So, okay, what's basically being talked about here is a complaint against a police officer, again, basically as presented. Although one of the things that's important to note is that police have intelligence officers. The City of Champaign has an intelligence officer. They have the ability to investigate whether a post on a blog was made by a user, what the IP address is, how precise they can go for the approximate location, whether or not that distinguishes between any of the people who have access to the site, right? So if that ran across anybody else's head and the officer was saying that, that would escalate tensions, basically. So again, it seems more like the police officer is defending his colleagues, because this is stuff that they could look into. The only argument that you could make is that there are potentially more severe things that you could look into, but the officer's not even making that claim. So it's more of a don't want to than a can't because other things so far. But again, it's rather than recording the concern, it's a debate. And that debate is still happening. This video is now 14 minutes in. It's 50 minutes long. I'm in for a long night with this, but, you know, this should be concerning to people.
The particular area that he's in, I don't have a camera on.
Okay, so I don't know about what happened on the square beforehand.
The particular area that this is here. So
is he
you're saying that...
Is he denying?
I'm not going back and forth with you on that. I'm covering your complaint here, Heather.
Mm-hmm. And our complaint is that your officer was unprofessional and caused fear, anxiety, and for our members to...
Based on what is right here in this first line, is that correct?
Based on this entire conversation that
he can't control...
Yes, he can.
He can't control who else does something on his site.
Yes,
he can block them if that's what he wants to do.
He could block them. He could have never started that conversation and never allowed it to continue.
Right. But But he didn't, and that he doesn't have to. He has free speech like anybody else.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that an officer may paint a target on any of our backs.
But there's no target painted on the back here. You're not specific
It's the
on
impact of how it feels.
Okay, I understand that. So it's basically your opinion, just your opinion.
No, our people, our org's opinion.
Your opinion, because you're the complainant on here, Heather.
Yes.
Not your organization.
Well, guess what?
Not your organization.
Well,
It's
you don't get to say.
What great de-escalation there, huh? So the main thing that's going on here is, again, a platform making I statements describing a situation that an off-duty officer was at is basically being used as described in a dehumanizing way, and this is how the officer receiving the report decides to respond. Basically, the moment that he is able to cause a walking back of the remarks by Heather, he's sort of digging in, right? And again, insisting that escalating rhetoric is First Amendment right without acknowledging that it is part of an escalating rhetoric, again, strikes me as more of a defense of the conduct than it is a processing of a complaint, which isn't hard to do. You can process a complaint. Anyway, I'm not going to keep harping on that. Gonna continue playing the video.
Say who I get to speak for in this room. Let me explain two other things. Here you go. Two other impact statements.
Here's the one thing I'll
Two
tell you.
other witnesses who saw that. Let me read those real quick.
You don't need to read that to me. If you want to give that to me, you're more than welcome to
In the
do that.
packet.
This is what I'm focusing on right now. This information here. Because I know come Monday, I will be the next hot topic for you to talk about at City Council. Because I know you're not going to enjoy what I'm telling you here, but I need specific information.
You didn't need to put that passive-aggressive dig in at me. This conversation, are we going to get any...
I'm not going to sit and listen to what you're going to read to me. If you have stuff for me to look at, I'm more than happy to look at that. But I'm not...
So, a couple different things that came up here. For one, the passive-aggressive remark. That was actually the thing that reminded me a bunch about what the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign police officers were doing right before they went down a stairwell and left a protest that I was a liaison at. And the thing of it is, again, playing a victim. The police officers basically saying, like, don't victimize me. Playing a victim is a very common role with abuse as a way of trying to maintain a power thing. It's a very dangerous thing to say because you can accuse almost anybody who suffers that or endures abuse of playing the victim. It's very hard to discern, which is why it's so frustrating. That said, you can tell that this is sort of frustrating and overwhelming to deal with as well. Again, supposed to be processing the complaint. The other thing is that the moment that this officer had previously also said that he has read things forward and backward. He had received the papers right then and there, and it's multiple pages. So I'm not sure that really engenders trust, but the fact that he doesn't want to listen to statements when he's supposed to be processing the complaint, and, you know, sure, it's in the packet, but this is the same guy who looked through the information and insists that he read it forward and back, and, you know, there's no way for him to state and prove otherwise, but given the conduct, it's heavily... I personally wouldn't trust that analysis. So, anywho, going back to playing the video.
I'm not going to sit in here. I'm trying to get to the bottom of what your complaint is. Because you're so generalized here.
Our complaint is that your officer showed poor judgment.
Okay.
And generalized us and accused us of wrongdoing with this woman.
He says protesters. That's all he says. He doesn't even use your organization's name. Does not specifically use your organization's name. That could be protesters all across the country.
That was our protest that night.
Okay.
She was not someone, and she was someone that we had told not to come back. She chose to attend that night.
So, I don't know what police officers would say that they are supposed to play devil's advocate when they are processing a complaint. And, you know, if some police officers say that, okay, but the point is, should they? And I would say no. And again, this is now the second or third tactic used to try and avoid this going through, almost as if he wants to get Heather to back down. Just to recap, the first one was basically the sorry, I'm having trouble concentrating because I'm not exactly happy to be going through this either. The first one was the basically the First Amendment right, just saying it's free speech, get over it. He didn't say the get over it to his limited credit. The other thing was the victim role dig, the passive aggressive dig, basically saying that I'm going to be the next hot topic come Monday. It's Friday, by the way. And the other thing is that it's shifting what the discussion basically is. I'm sorry, I'm having a real hard time concentrating because I'm not exactly happy to be watching this. But again, I promised, so I'm going to be playing through. But pretty much every time that I play the video, it's pretty apparent. I guess I'll start writing notes as it's playing so that I don't keep losing track. Sorry. Anyway, playing the video.
And when she arrived, I set down the ground rules, and she told me that, no, she will only be peaceful while she's there. And then she told me about the problem she had, and then I spoke with Officer...
Oh, sorry, I remembered what that third point was. That was saying that, oh, protesters could refer to anybody. People can abuse you through subtweeting and through vague posting and all of that kind of stuff. I would be very hard-pressed to find a police department that doesn't complain about that kind of thing as well. So I don't at all buy that as a valid excuse. And again, I don't think that anybody should accept that. Anyway, playing the video, I've got a pen and paper to write notes.
Officer Hamer, and I said, please pass along to Officer... She is not with our org, and we do not condone that kind of behavior.
And he even went on his Facebook, which is not included in your post, but he went on his Facebook and actually apologized a little bit, saying, I'm sorry.
The next day after, several of our members messaged that page and said, you are making us feel very afraid.
Okay, and then he said that he apologized for that. Is that not correct?
So he...
Is that not
so
correct?
he claims he apologized?
It's on his Facebook post.
Right. So
right.
Good. Well,
there's no claim. It's on his Facebook stuff.
Okay. And we don't know that that's him for sure, right?
Well, I'm saying, you're saying that it's him if it's Illinois Tactical Firearms Training.
If it's him, then it's him. Okay, good. So then that first post is him, and then he apologized for that post. That's fine.
So,
but we still want him held accountable for what?
For having a Facebook page and having people talk on the Facebook page. Is that correct?
We want him accountable for being a police officer who does not understand his power and authority in this community, and that when he uses his voice in a tactical website against peaceful protesters, equating us with dehumanizing language, that it causes fear and causes us to be afraid to have any confidence in calling your police department.
Did he at any point in time say that he was a police officer with the Macomb Police Department?
I have no idea. I did not go through the rest of it after that. If he did, I don't think so. But he
never did. I mean, I'll tell you now, I looked at all the posts. He never once says anything about being a police officer with the Macomb Police Department.
But he's still well known here as
I understand
person, and some
but
of our members
they now know who he is because you went in front of city council to call him out on it.
Yeah, so we can't let a police officer attack our org this way or cause us to feel unsafe.
Okay.
When men do this to us, you should understand.
But I don't understand. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand why you're saying you fit, because he lumps this person in with protesters. Doesn't even if I had a little more specific stuff as far as saying
So
that...
is this complaint about you and your feelings and what you think, or is it about the impact and the fear in my aura?
It's about what a reasonable person perceives. I have to take it as a reasonable...
Okay, so this reasonable person language, when it is frustrating because it's basically saying to somebody that they are being unreasonable for the impact that something happened to them. I also want to note that, you know, okay, great, there was an apology made, but then there was basically this, again, First Amendment, but derisive comment, just saying, for people talking. And it's important to note that this person in question was able to modify who had their voices present and was sequestering the voices of people who were trying to explain the situation, which is basically what's detailed in the prior discussion of this video. And the other thing is that this officer likes to, apparently, this is the second time that he's insisting that he had seen everything, seen all the posts, read the whole document, forward and backward. And nuance in communication helps to engender trust. So if you want to provide a time range to it or anything like that, maybe people would believe you. But if you're saying that you looked at the very first post that this page all made all the way until the end, till the current date, how is anybody supposed to believe that? That's going to take hours, if not longer. And given that the rush that we're seeing this police officer in, I don't think that that's credible. Anyway, I'm not exactly sure if I'm doing quite the analysis that I was asked for, but, you know, that's my read on the situation. And again, I'm going to continue playing the video and taking notes because that improved my focus immensely.
Reasonable person perception. That's what I have to take it as. As I'm looking at it, there's no violation of department policy that I see in this original post.
Okay.
That I see here, and you keep going back to the fact that he blocked your people from
even being able to clarify the differentiation that she was now with us, trying to make us be safer so that we could differentiate.
Have you not blocked people from your Facebook stuff?
Excuse me, are we being investigated?
I'm explaining to you.
He is an officer who has, may I clarify something? We're volunteers. We stand there with cardboard. We don't have guns and shields and the police the way that you all do. So it's not an equivalent thing. We block people who attack us, yes. If they are just hurting somebody, if they are re-traumatizing our people, we do not have to give a forum for hate, and we don't on our wall. And we block people who just are, and of course, none of this is about how our org functions. This is about his functioning as an officer, and if you are okay with an officer behaving in that manner, and all of us being, you know, caused to feel unsafe and to feel intimidated to even
But you're not
protest
giving me anything to tell me that what specifically are you talking about as far as how you feel intimidated? You're saying that the language that he uses...
And also it being on a tactical site with other people who are using, that started off a flame war.
Does he ever at any point in time say that you need to go out and shoot protesters? Does that take place anywhere in here?
So that is the only level that...
I'm not saying that. I'm going through a list of questions for you, okay?
Does he do that? No. Do others make veiled threats like that? Yeah.
Specifically what?
What I read to you already. It's time the city puts a stop to the BS and grow a set. People are so stupid these days and they wonder why we want concealed carry licenses. Stay safe. We back the blue. Wish I was there. The first time she dropped it, I would have thrown it in the garbage. Yep, common sense and respect for each other has gone out the window.
Nothing there is a threat to anybody.
It's more the ability of these men to be using language. Stay strapped, my friend. College kid or local.
But this is a tactical site.
So let's talk about that, because the main thing that some people could come to the conclusion here is that in that very limited exchange, maybe the officer was actually providing a point saying that there was no direct threat. Well, here's how implied threats work. In a particular instance where there is confrontation, you say, "Got your Glock. Stay armed." Why? Why is that a remark to make? Do you say that to your grandmother on her birthday? The idea being that it's somehow relevant to the discussion. Why is that discussion about a person non-violently interacting with the police in a way that that person didn't like, and then spoke about it on a private Facebook page, private as in not a government Facebook page? Why is that not seen as relevant? And also, why didn't the person moderating the Facebook page acknowledge or prune away irrelevant responses? They've already demonstrated the wherewithal to prune certain responses, but they only seem to be ones that weren't affirming the viewpoint of the poster. And yeah, people are allowed to have biases. One could argue that this analysis entirely is a biased exercise. However, I'm not saying Molotov cocktail the police officer's home or anything of that sort. I'm saying that this is how I view a situation that is unfolding, and here are a series of points. So my speech is not quite the same as the speech of these folks. And again, I'm not saying limit the free speech, but it is important to acknowledge the impact of those things, especially when it comes to a complaint against a police officer, where those are highly empowered individuals who can and do cost us lives. So why is it that there's this protective mechanism against the complaint itself? No violation of department policy. Well, we've heard that phrase a lot in Urbana when it comes to the violence against a black woman being considered no violation of department. We've heard similar statements made of a vehicle driving through a crowd of protesters because it was doing so at what the state's attorney viewed to be at a low speed, to where no violation of department's basic policies basically just means I don't wanna. That really doesn't add up. If the officer made available the department policies and said, here are the policies, which one are you saying was violated? And the entire nature of the complaint is that there is something that is violated. That is why they are submitting the complaint. Otherwise, it would basically be this exogenous document that the person would just accept, right? Finish some paperwork. Why are you spending so much time fighting the processing of this paperwork if it doesn't actually touch a nerve on the department policy? So yeah, that's one thing that sort of hits me as a suspicion there. Blocking people is not a parity in conversation, because one is blocking people who are basically being aggressive towards somebody in a way that makes them concerned for their safety, so that they can, and this is things that police will have told me to cease communication with a person before. So as far as blocking somebody as any sort of, well, you do it, doesn't quite add up. It's actually quite in line with the practice of making sure that there is space so that conversations don't escalate. Also, the parity in blocking people. The police officer off-duty on a tactical website blocking people who are trying to de-escalate a conversation, right? They're trying to provide clarification so that their group, at the very least, is not the target of ire, that is reducing the amount of escalation in the conversation in theory, that's different. That's blocking people who are trying to reduce the response to something, and not in this sort of erasure sort of way, but to say in a clarifying way. And that's an important distinction, and not given anything specific. That's dishonest, right? Because there's very specific examples provided. However, it can be something that the police officer is saying of, I will only intervene if there is a direct and immediate threat against your life, and anything else I will not intervene. That's a criminal standard. That's not a complaint standard. Complaints are in part a labor process. That's not a criminal process. So that's irrelevant. Anyway, going back.
So, yeah, when I've been wondering when this BS would come to Macomb, we can't let radicals take over. I have a very short fuse, and I really don't want to go to jail, but I won't stand back.
But they make no direct threats to you. No direct threats to you or anyone.
Okay, so that's a pretty that is an intent to that is a very, that's basically very close to violence there, of saying I'd be willing to go to jail for that. And as somebody who has participated in nonviolent civil disobedience, the distinction that I will make between someone saying I'm willing to go to jail for that versus I'm willing to go to jail for this particular instance is that they're basically dehumanizing somebody and saying, I need to replay that particular part because I can't reiterate it and I didn't note that down, so I'm gonna just play that. We'll get the audio and then I'll keep speaking.
My friend, college kid or local.
But this is
I've been wondering when I've been wondering when this BS would come to Macomb. We can't let radicals take over. I have a very short fuse, and I really don't want to go to jail, but I won't stand back.
Okay, so the very short fuse aspect. So for one, that part I don't think should be the focus of conversation. There are actually people that I've interacted with, including chronic homeless folks, who have described in a de-escalating sort of way of like, please, let's just drop this conversation. I have a short fuse. But the main thing is talking about these radicals in combination with, and I'd be happy to go to jail, or the exact language that was used. That's sort of where there's a very suggestive thing here. Now, the argument that the police officer may be making is that it may not be the responsibility of the police officer to moderate all the people that are responding to them, but there is such a thing as incitement. To say that inciting, incitement, that not inciting incitement. And so this is something that happens quite a bit. People will incite instances that lead to death threats and things like that. Now, we haven't seen an explicit death threat, but these are all intimidating statements, and it's worth noting that those comments were eventually scrubbed, but it's not clear whether or not they were scrubbed before or after the complaint process got underway or communication stated that there was a complaint process, and it's important to note whatever that is. Anyway, continuing the video.
But they make no direct threats to you. No direct threats to you or anyone in your organization, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's based on your perception and your organization's perception. Let's say your organization's perception that is a threat. Mm-hmm. It's on a tactical website. Mm-hmm. Okay. Why would you, you're anti-gun, I would assume.
Okay, we'll get to that gun thing in a minute, and Heather actually does a pretty good job with that, because I've watched a little bit of this video beforehand, but not the entire thing. Perception. How many times have we heard police officers say, "I reasonably feared for my life"? That's a perception statement. So isn't it interesting that when it's inconvenient for the police officers, they are making the perception statement as a way of avoiding any further processing of this document? Anyway, continuing on.
I'm actually not anti-gun, believe it or not. I used to be a FOID card holder, and I grew up in a family.
Here's what I'm saying. You could choose not to look at this if that's what you choose to do, correct?
So, as the leader of our org, all of our members began messaging with their fear and concern and worry. So this impacted an organization and damaged our org's members. It hurt them. And Regina Matthews will, be able to meet with you about her part of it, but because she was the one on duty for our org, overseeing, responses and trying to do something.
But it's the same stuff that you're saying. I'm not seeing anything here that says a direct threat. I've asked you specifically.
Okay, so
is there any direct
police
threat?
can only be if they violate the law. There's nothing subpart.
No, we have policies and procedures that we have in place, and I told you that. But as I look through here, one, he doesn't mention that he's a Macomb City police officer. You've brought that out.
Because everybody in this community already is well aware of that.
They're aware of it because he has concealed carry classes. That's fine. But he doesn't mention that. He doesn't mention anything in there for that. He doesn't say he's with the Macomb Police Department. He has his private business. This is his private business page.
Private tactical business, which, do they have contracts with the police?
They do not.
Okay, good.
So we don't have contracts with anybody as it relates to firearm stuff.
Or tactical
gear or anything else. All of our...
Okay, so a couple notes here. Again, with the anything statements of a direct threat that operating on a criminal standard rather than a labor standard for the complaint process, that's an irrelevant remark. The bit about while not on duty, that's where things get a little more interesting and murky. So, for example, there was a University of Illinois employee who posted while they were technically on the clock, and posted or sent a very hateful message to somebody that was shared, and the employee was dismissed. Another instance, a University of Illinois employee basically was involved in some activism that was misrepresented and incited violence, but incited threats of violence, or even actually more precise way of saying it is just general incitement. I don't want to be hyperbolic in it, and also I don't know the specifics there, but caused a kerfuffle, general incitement, threats of that person losing their job. But because that person was off the clock, it was not deemed to be relevant, and also their union was going to bat for them. Police unions are much more protected than standard labor unions, and so it's unfortunately a very... Unfortunately, it looks like that's sort of their out in this part of the conversation. Is just that what happens outside is not relevant inside. I would contend that for positions where we have so much more vulnerability to those folks, that is something that we should still consider. However, they're not compelled to by structures that, any structures I know of, which it sucks, but the thing is that depends on if there were any time-stamped interactions, and they all occurred outside of the person's shifts. That would require you to know the person's shift schedule during that time. I'm not sure if that can be obtained via a FOIA from a private person. It may be something that's obtainable from a FOIA from a news outlet of some kind. I'm not sure. But the thing is that this still doesn't stop anybody from processing a complaint. it could then be rejected, but you could still process it. So again, there seems to be, just on the basis of the pushback, a there. But the remark about while not on duty for the posts is something that struck me as of note.
You're just ordered straight through either Gil Hubbard's, or not Gil Hubbard's, but Uniform Den at a mall. We
appreciate that.
All of our firearms are ordered through other dealers that are around.
Our concern is that if we call the police because we need help.
So basically we're saying that he's already targeting you.
No, we're saying that people do not feel safe.
Okay.
He has had a loss of, we didn't have an opinion on him before until this happened, but then he didn't even give our leadership team the courtesy of responding back.
But he did respond on his page.
After we called him out on our page.
Okay, so then he responded back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So
fear is still there.
Okay,
the damage to our org is still there. The trauma to our members is still there.
But there's no issue with your organization whatsoever.
If you cannot, I understand if you do not see the issue with a sworn police officer owning a tactical business and posting a generalized comment that leads to a flame war, including people dehumanizing and further using scary language.
But people can have their own opinions. Everybody has an opinion, and that's what these look like. These are opinions that people have put out there.
Okay.
You don't like things that I probably like. You don't like things, I probably don't like things that you like. Everybody doesn't get along and doesn't agree on every single thing that goes on. But we don't take it to the point to where you've contacted the FBI to investigate.
Because we believe that we won't get a fair investigation from this department.
Okay.
And some of which, can I also ask, why are you assigned to be the person interacting with me, knowing that you are the person that is named in the Ariel Harrison case, for which we've gotten her, one of the people named in the Harrison case.
I wasn't there at all.
Okay, well, maybe
not at all. So, I mean,
your name is not on the report?
No.
Okay.
It absolutely is not.
Oh, good. Then it's a different person. I want to make sure that they didn't assign me anyone who's assigned with that case.
So,
yeah, the point that's brought up by the video here is basically the sort of projection of someone being unreasonable, the complaint filer being unreasonable and a hyperbolic person. That's gaslighting, right? Whether or not you believe it, you should just process the complaint. So, no, that doesn't strike me as relevant. A lot of this strikes me as concerning behavior. I think this would be a huge scandal if this happened in Champaign-Urbana. We already got enough going on, but that would be very concerning. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that, so, you know, again, I want to repeat why somebody who does not trust the police in a community that doesn't have a lot of organizing infrastructure in place to keep people safe outside of the police, yet anyway, would still go to the police. And again, it is about making sure that if something gets worse, that you can show that you tried to take steps to protect yourself, and that's why additional steps are needed. Anywho, playing the video.
That's absolutely not. You should have everything already out on that case because you filed a FOIA for it, and you had all the information there. So my name is not there on the report. I didn't have anything to do with that case whatsoever.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to make sure that you were not a part of that case.
It doesn't pertain to that case anyway.
Okay. Well, we were hoping that this complaint process would get at, because our understanding was that if a police officer acts in a way that causes you to feel unsafe, we thought maybe the police department would be concerned about that. But since it's all on us and we just have to put up with it as is, I guess that we
I'm saying that I'm asking for specific information.
And I've given you all the specific information.
Right, but you've given me no specific. It's also generalities. This is why I'm asking you, what specifically is there that's targeted? You read me the one complaint. He doesn't target it. There's no...
Okay, it's just generalized then, everybody knows, I mean, we've made it very clear that we are a group that does the protest, so by him saying protesters in that way, everybody knows who.
But you're not the only group that's up there, is that correct?
Not anymore. The other ones have given up because they're afraid.
Okay.
We are the only group doing it now.
Okay, I
Y'all
understand
have
that.
won. The haters have won. They've scared the other groups.
Why are you lumping me into that category?
I'm sorry.
Once again, you're generalizing me with everybody else, just like
You said you assumed that I'm against.
I just assumed that because I just assumed
Exactly.
that. So, and I told you that. I told you that in front. I'm assuming that you're a non-gun owner, is what I said. I put that out there to you. I put that right out there to you.
Mm-hmm. So
if I'm making an assumption, I'm putting it right out there for you, okay?
we have tried to provide impact statements on how our members have been made to feel by this incident. And I understand that you do not, since it does not find the criteria to definitely say, yeah, he definitely intentionally tried to do it in a way. We know that police officers know how to skirt the law. Our concern is your department lost our faith after we were trying to helping some of our members try to find their way back to you. And since then...
What do you mean by that? Find their way back to us?
Some of our members who have had negative interactions that they have relayed, and some of the negative interactions that we have had, we've been trying to work with us as a group to begin to have open conversations and to talk about how, when we interact with each other, it's important to try to adhere to understand things like violence and sub-narratives and subtext. There's a lot of sub-narratives in this that do not meet the criteria where you can probably hold them accountable. But at the very least, it would have been nice to have been received as potential concerned citizens instead of people who are just here to create problems for you. And
I've never said that.
You have never said that? Your tone and attitude has been adversarial.
I have never said that. Because I'm trying to get specific stuff from you, Heather. It's like when I talk to you on the phone.
So, just pointing out, both from what the video is saying and also just reinforcing that, I suppose, this is bad. And I'm saying that in terms of one could process a vacuous complaint and then nothing would happen other than a complaint was filed. Now, one could write the paperwork for complaint submission and reject it. But this is above and beyond either of those two options. And I can say, as somebody who had filed reports, I never had this sort of interaction. Again, I don't live in an area as rural as the area that this video is from. But the other thing is that there's sort of, again, this no specific information. That's probably just a poor way of phrasing no actionable information as perceived by this officer, which, again, I don't know that I would trust that. But the other thing is that there's this, yeah, I did make that assumption. Like, acknowledging things that were frustrating in the conversation and just saying, yeah, I did it. One could apologize. It's a way of basically saying that that wasn't right, that it was done that way, because he objected to something being done on parody, which, you know, again, it's a very difficult conversation of saying who should bear the higher burden of responsibility. And I would still say the police officer, it's not an easy job, right? Yet this behavior from the officer, I would say, more or less helps keep the job easy, because this makes the complaint process hostile. And if complaint processes are hostile, the department can basically say, hey, look, no complaint processes or anything like that. Again, I'm for police abolition in this whole discussion, so I'm just doing this in good faith to just make sure that someone is heard. I've seen enough, but I'm going to continue through the video all the way to the conclusion. We're over halfway done. That's the good news.
I'm trying to get specific information from you. I want to do what I can for you, but if I don't have specific stuff, I can't do too much. And you're not providing me with anything specific. You keep going broad on everything. You keep going broad on it.
Because he wisely was not dumb enough to target us by name, I guess that means then that he gets away with all of this from your perspective.
So you're saying
the
that
damage to our org has been done. The damage.
I want to do what I can. I think the officer repeated that twice. Yeah, that's a statement. The main thing is that I want to do what I can to help would have involved a lot less combativeness and would have involved a lot more clarifying questions and providing additional statements from the people affected, including a person present in the room, to make sure that the report was well documented, even if it didn't actually result in an accepted complaint. The person who was affected would have been heard. So clearly that is a threat of some kind to the stability of the police workplace. Otherwise, one would have to come to the conclusion that the police officer is an irrational actor. Neither of which is a comforting prospect. So anyway, going back through the video.
Damage to our people has been done, and I'm trying to make you aware that if you allow officers to do this to your community members, then your department is going to continue to have trouble being trusted in this community.
I don't expect everybody to agree with every single thing that we do. Just like you can't expect everybody to agree with every single thing that you do.
But
everybody has opinions. What was that? I'm sorry?
You're paid, though, and your department is paid by our tax dollars. So
An I'm sorry statement was issued. That's an improvement. I'm going to re-watch that small segment just because I think that was the first time that was done in the conversation 30 minutes in.
To agree with every single thing that you do.
But
everybody has opinions. What was that? I'm sorry?
You're paid, though, and your department is paid by our tax dollars, so we would like at least the assumption that we are, when we're coming here, I'd also like to find out, is there a policy that says that we can only meet in this small room, and that...
No, there isn't a policy. I wanted to be able to have an audio and video recording of this, so that you can't say that I said something that I didn't say, or I can't say that you said something that you didn't say. We generally like to have that done, and we don't generally do it as a group either. Any interview that we do, anything, sex assault interviews, robbery interviews, any interview that we do one-on-one with somebody else. So that we don't have a whole large group in here trying to intermingle their thoughts and going back and forth and throwing in their 2 cents.
Okay, well, so clearly having a group of people in the room is not a violation of policy. Otherwise, it would have been cited by the police officer that it was a violation of policy. Referring to normality as a defense is something that I've seen public officials doing a lot for not wanting to talk about the specifics as to what a thing is. It's normal. It's done all in these other places. That's not okay. So anyway, I just wanted to note that, again, there's this equivocation of opinions. Again, anybody who has studied escalation in language, reaching through to radicalization of people in an extremism way, would recognize the severity of the things that are being complained about. And, the audio-visual equipment thing is interesting because I don't know that this police department has body cameras, so this could actually be the only room. But accommodations could be made. Police officers, just like other units of government, the police department would probably be able to get access to another room if they believed it important enough. Again, the police officer's wearing a mask, so it's not exactly like the police officer's like, I'm gonna lock you in here and not wear a mask, and, you know, you're gonna deal with it. But the thing is that trying to castigate things as highly unusual when it is something that a person who has identified as a survivor has basically pushed for to happen instead seems more of a way to try and do a backhanded dig at the survivor, saying, you needed all of this? And I would very much hope that the officer would deny that. But in any case, going to continue with the video.
I want to get that information from that particular person.
Trauma is worth more than 2 cents, sir. The pain and
I apologize, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, I can't have a group in here throwing in this and this and this, then you throwing more stuff at me.
This was done...
So, 2 things to note here. An apology was issued again. I have some thoughts on why that might be. For one, after 30 minutes of attempting to derail, people are still there, still pressing for the complaint to be done. An improvement in behavior has been somewhat noted. The other thing I do have to rewind just a little bit for, because I didn't write it down and I thought I could keep it in my head, but again, I'm not at all happy with the experience of watching this, and so I have to acknowledge that sometimes I need to write things down. So I'm going to replay that audio only.
I apologize, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, I can't have a group in here throwing in this and this and this, then you throwing more stuff at me.
So this entire conversation, at least from the audio that has been picked up, it's been Heather and the officer back and forth. So this sort of claim that I'm getting information from everywhere is interesting, because I don't see anything to suggest that, at least as he's suggesting it as being part of a verbal communication. Now, this could be a highly directional microphone. However, Heather's phone that was also recording as she announced it is not a highly directional microphone. And so if there were statements from that other person in the room who is off camera, that should be picked up, even if it's just, you know, elevated noise by that microphone, and would verify that. But based on what I'm seeing, I'm not getting that. So, Ahu, continuing on with the video.
This was done against the members of our group.
What was done specifically
When he
against your
deleted
members?
our group's thoughtful comments, instead of allowing us to have a conversation, and then he didn't respond back to them, and instead, but then left up all the hateful stuff against us, that allowed our people to feel like, okay, we can't even get at this anyway. I guess we'll just have to live with whatever he allows posted about us. And then...
But we made the same thing. You just said that you delete people off of your stuff that you don't want on yours.
So this is, again, a return to the specificity complaint, or I would argue bad faith arguments, because, again, this is a complaint about conduct, and the thing is, I would say that it is specific to block people who are trying to facilitate a narrative about a situation to ensure their safety, while not blocking anybody who is making a bunch of suggestive escalatory statements. That does not seem to be in the best interest of people's safety and well-being. which is concerning behavior from an officer even when operating off duty. But again, if they believed that the off-duty thing was wholly defensible in and of itself, I would not believe that they would fight a complaint this hard. Anyway, continuing the video.
Ours is not a private business that does a tactical website that allows men with histories of violence against women to demean women.
So you have one guy on here, who else is on there that has a history of violence? Who else specifically? You talk about the subject, who else specifically has a history of violence?
There's a couple on there that have, but I don't have permission to relate what they have relayed to us. But they did relay concern. Also you have former MPT officer. He didn't say anything inappropriate, but he is someone that we recognize as a former officer.
So he can't make a comment on that?
Of course he can.
Okay, so why are you bringing that up?
You're asking me for context. I'm giving you context on why that stuff is. I'm telling you that we are concerned that the culture of your department is extremely misogynistic and has no problem allowing women to feel unsafe and made unsafe by your actions outside of your department.
My actions specifically?
When I say specifically,
so
this is an example of where...
to me.
No, you're asking me about how...
So there a broad statement was then vectored into sort of trying to make it a personal attack. And it could be done in a way to try and discredit the very nature of the complaints from Heather et al. That was a very interesting thing that the officer attempted to do there. It doesn't seem that Heather took that bait. The other thing is consent to discuss. It was admirable that despite being in this room for about 32 minutes at this point, that despite all of the escalating aspects of the conversation, or at least frustrating aspects of the conversation, that the consent was respected. Always worth mentioning that. There was another point here that I wanted to get to. I did not write that point down, but I'm also kind of tired, so I'm going to keep playing the video.
Where our org, you wanted to talk about my org?
I asked you specifically, what other people in this chain of people that are on here are ones that...
So, I'm not going to relate the details about those, other than to say that we have concerns, and we do have some evidence that shows that some of these people in the past have said things that are quite frightening about women and about hurting women. And some of their...
But you won't specifically give me any of that information.
I will not, because I do not have the permission, and they are not on trial, so they have not changed.
I'm not expecting them to be on trial.
Our issue is with your department allowing one of your officers on his own time to use his tactical website to degrade all of us protesters in a way that then sparked a conversation that allowed a lot of people to further degrade and demean us and cause us to feel unsafe. Do with that what you will. That is the crux of our issue.
Okay.
We do not feel safe now. We do not feel like we can trust that we will be treated fairly by your department. We do not feel like if somebody's hurting us that we can trust if we called the police. He would not that he would not act in a way that caused us to be even more unsafe.
Have you had anyone tell you that they had contact with detectives and has been anything but professional with them? Aside from this right here, aside from this entire thing, is there anything that you have that indicates that has been the case?
I don't have permission to relay that information.
But Heather, you can't give me vagaries and then not give me specific information.
We're talking about this issue, and
that's correct.
If they will come forward and speak to you, then yes, if they will. But I can't do that for them. That is on them. But you can see why they are, maybe you can understand a little bit about why they're afraid. If they're told that they have to subject themselves to a questioning process like this, that is just an intake process that is just like it would be if they were criminals, and they're already people who are traumatized and marginalized and feel like they're not going to get a fair shake here. Why would they feel comfortable?
Here's my thing, Heather. I keep asking you specific questions. You give me vagaries. You don't give me specific stuff. I can't.
Okay, I can't do anything.
I can't leave you that this is adversarial because I'm trying to get more information from you, but you don't want to give me more information. It's like saying I have evidence of this, but you can't see it because I don't want you to see it.
The stuff that they gave us obviously doesn't meet the criteria for those people being held accountable in a court of law. Does that mean, can you acknowledge that there are some men who are smart enough to be able to harm women, but they don't necessarily get caught for it?
150%, yes.
Okay, yes.
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
well, if you agree with people commenting are people who are known to our members as people who have done that in the past.
And I'm saying I need to know some specifics about this. You can't just say, this is what we're lumping everyone into because this person's done this person's done that. They've not made
Our
any
issue
press.
is not with those individuals because it could be them or anybody. Our issue is that the conversation would never have happened on a tactical website if not for your officer making that post.
And you can post what you want to post on your website that has no repercussion. I mean, is that not correct? You're violating someone's free speech to say what they want to say. Because everything that I'm sitting here, when I talk to you about specifics and...
No, I'm not violating free speech. That is... Let's talk about freedom of speech, okay? I'm not the government. Freedom of speech only protects you from the governmental intrusions on your freedom of speech. Is the government, and as is this department.
But he also is a private citizen
As a private citizen, however, he is still a public figure.
That's correct.
And a public figure who is also employed as a law enforcement officer can be held to a higher standard of ethical conduct outside of his normal duties when such conduct creates fear or is done in a way that it may create loss of trust in the public, and that could be a color of law violation. It could be an intimidation that could actually go against our First Amendment rights because the intimidation factor of it, and that's where our concern is. Our people were intimidated by this. Whether or not you believe that any of this has merit to create that intimidation or not, that is the reality, and it caused a lot of our people, right, to not feel safe.
You've contacted Facebook, but Facebook did not feel that any of that stuff violated their rules of conduct.
Well, we don't know if it did or not because it was already pulled down. He had pulled it down.
Okay, so
it may have...
All right, so let's go back to this notion of intimidation. So the main thing that the officer was trying to do was draw a sort of false equivalence to you can post what you want and they can post what they want. Almost as if he was suggesting that things that the group present, which is the Democratic Women of McDonough County, were somehow knuckle-crackling people who were intimidating members of the community. Now, it's clear that there is, you know, from earlier passive-aggressive remarks in the discussion, the officer had said, I don't want to be the next hot topic. It's very important to differentiate accountability from intimidation, because it's sort of equivocated as a way to avoid the accountability aspect. It's not pleasant to be held accountable at all, and can be castigated as intimidation. So unless if the officer has any, dare I say it, specific instances, I don't think that I would trust that equivalency at all. The point that was made about a public figure, that to me, that description completely fits why the complaint is being fought, despite the fact that the police officer was off duty. Public figures are held to a higher standard, not just when it comes to you know, things like what are being discussed, but also things like copyright law. So that is very interesting, And good on Heather for bringing that up. I'm going to continue playing the video.
Have met their criteria, but he pulled it down before they got to it, as far as we know.
They still have access to that information, believe it or not. Facebook still has access to stuff taken down.
Yes,
okay?
I'm quite aware of that.
I've done enough investigations on online stuff that Facebook still has access to that. So if they felt that it was a violation, they would have pulled his, they would have put him in, as we keep saying, Facebook jail is what everyone keeps saying. So they would have pulled his stuff off there instantly if they felt that was the case.
Deal with misogyny or racism very well at all.
Okay, well...
and they definitely don't deal with threats of violence or people being scary, but this is a local issue as far as we're concerned, and you keep bringing up First Amendment rights of them. Again, First Amendment relates only to government intrusion on First Amendment rights. So if a member of our local government, of which is, and a representative of an enforcement arm of our government, conducts himself in a way off duty that causes our members to feel unsafe and unprotected and to fear calling the police department to help protect our rights to protest, that is our issue.
So what has he done to violate your rights to protest? What has he done?
So because you cause someone to feel intimidated and to...
It's exactly like the same thing I talked to you about.
I know,
when I talked to you
your
the other
perspective
day.
is he's not done anything. I'm telling you, this is all I got. And that's, I guess I'll just leave it at that. Our perception, our fear, is that a member of your police department made it very clear that he really doesn't care about us at all. Made it very clear what he thinks of us all as a group. And that description also described Alderwoman Tammy Lee Brown Edwards, who was there that night, and 12 of the students that she had invited there for their very first protest ever. And now they had to read that about them. And how do you think that might have made them feel? And that's the thing. It's about how his behavior made our women and our guests feel. And he doesn't have to take responsibility for any of it. I mean, he did post an apology, and I guess that's all we will get from it. But we have done our due diligence of at least bringing it to your attention as a department. And so if there's nothing that comes from it further, then I guess that's that. But we at least have done our due diligence of trying to get you all the screenshots and writing it up and getting impact statements and handed it off to you. And I guess from there, that's all that what you choose to do with after that is out of our hands.
Am I able to keep that one section that you gave me?
Yeah, you may
need to make a copy of it.
If you wouldn't mind making a copy of it for the city attorney so that she may have a copy as well.
No, she gets all of this.
Okay.
She'll get everything. So, okay. I'll go back through your stuff to compare it to what I have. But you still have not given me any specific information. That's all I need, Heather, is I need specific information. I can't have generalities. I have to have specific stuff. So you're saying based on these posts that you have people that do not feel comfortable with the police department based on these posts, even though he's made no comment that he works for the Macomb Police Department, he's made no comment that he owns the page. I'm not saying that he didn't post this. I'm just saying he never put out there his name. Okay. It's just his tactical website page.
Okay.
I'm sure there's more pages that are out there that are probably much worse than what is on his.
But they're not run by one of our Macomb police
I understand
officers.
that because it's not where you want to be on that. I understand that. So if I can't get specific information...
This is all the information that we have.
Okay.
This is all the information we have, and we didn't dig any further because that's just one problem of many. But the fact that our young people were made to feel degraded and intimidated and frightened, that should be a concern.
Based on these comments that are here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
And all the shares, because we don't know where all those were shared to, and all the hundreds of people who responded on that. Because that is a lot of people against 20 people standing up for Black Lives Matter to be afraid of. But so that's where it is for us. For us, it's about the fear and the intimidation. Having a police officer who we know may be the one responding if we ever need help, posting that, how we
think about us. Based off of what that says, you think that he's going to treat you differently than anybody else that you have out there?
We have concerns that may be the case, yes.
But you have no evidence that that has ever, you're saying that you do, but you don't want to give me that evidence. Am I correct with that assumption?
So the comments that people have brought in, we don't consider evidence until we get them to do a formal, or have enough of them in the same vein, and they are not wanting to do that, and so we just let that sit. And we didn't write any of that in there because it is hearsay for that. This stuff is directly our impact of how we feel and we're made to feel based on what we saw and tried to write in response to clarify and to calm people down. So we did try, using our soft skills and our fancy manners, to stop the hatred directed at us and to try to help our members feel safer, and we couldn't even do that. And so at this point, all we can do is give you what the screenshots are, how our people felt. And if you don't see anything wrong with that, or that doesn't violate any department policies, it doesn't. It doesn't violate the law, clearly, it doesn't. And I guess if complaints are only for things for which we had evidence for which it violated the law, then that's asking a lot of private citizens to take on. We do our best, but we've spent a lot of time, and our members have spent an awful lot of time attending to the mental health of the people who were especially frightened by this. Some of them are gun violence survivors. Having comments about us on a tactical website for their coming and standing with us caused them to feel degraded and unsafe in this community. And that is not a way our students should ever be made to feel. That is not a way that our people should ever be made to feel for standing up for Black Lives Matter. But we can't control how that went down. And of course, he's not responsible for what people actually said, but he is responsible for sparking the discussion and providing the forum for it. We appreciate that he said that he apologized after the fact. The damage was already done to both our org, our members. Some of our members are survivors of horrific violence, and they probably will not ever do anything publicly in our org again.
But you have nothing specifically targeted towards your organization, do you or do you not?
Other than the comments made with our names on there, no.
Okay.
And saying protesters, and him posting it about the same time as our protest was going on. I mean, talking about how that went on the night before, and then him talking about how it was at our protest, and that she was laughing at our protest. Yeah, that kind of links back to us in a way. Yep.
But she was at your protest.
Right, but it's a public park.
Right,
we don't
that's
control
correct.
who shows up, and we try to run off anyone who behaves in that manner. And we have run off many.
Right, but it was at your protest, is what I'm saying.
No, she didn't do that at our protest. She didn't do that at our
You're
protest.
saying right after the protest.
No, she did that before she ever came to our protest. Their interaction had nothing to do with us whatsoever. He made it about us when he said about these people, the caliber of these people.
Okay.
Because it felt targeted to our people, whether or not the language meets that thing, and that's what I'm trying to draw your attention to.
I don't know what you're trying to draw my attention to. I'm saying that I can't, based on what I have.
So, right after Heather made a very specific statement about what she was trying to draw his attention to, he just said, "I don't know what you're trying to draw my attention to." That is a lie. It was stated very plainly. Also, it's interesting about this notion of the responsibility of the forum for discussion, because as somebody who has organized with folks that are basically under attack through a weakening of the First Amendment, it actually, in part, makes it so that the forums can be held responsible for the discussions in them. This is all loosely speaking. So it's interesting that such a thing, which has, I would say, definitely benefited police, given who these vulnerable groups of people are that were affected by the thing that I'm vaguely mentioning. It's a thing that affects sex workers. Given the role that has been happening or given the dynamics of what has been happening in our community, especially with the just gross and arrestable actions of police officers in my own community, it's interesting that one would benefit from certain forms being held accountable and insisting that others should not be held accountable for what people do within them. It's very interesting. Anyway, going to continue playing the video.
I don't have enough to do anything with it.
Okay, there's no provision for officers avoiding the appearance of unethical behavior or avoiding the appearance.
You consider this unethical by posting a statement that he had?
I do. I do.
I don't. And I can tell you that, I have to base it off of a reasonable standard of what's there. How many...
It's interesting, the lack of specifics behind the reasonable standard. Again, being used as a way to distinguish between the standard that Heather is using, which, again, trauma-literate people would find to be a very reasonable standard. So, going to continue playing the video.
People could look at this and say, this is what took place. I'm looking at it. There's no threats made to anybody. He's posting a statement saying, and then making the statement about this is the caliber of our protesters.
And equating a 110-pound woman to two large men who murdered police officers in cold blood when he talked about LA.
Does it say anything about a 110-pound woman?
No, I did not put out her physical description on there.
Okay, but he didn't do that though, right?
So, no, he equated it like he was in big danger, like he felt like he was in big danger. And our concern is that if he can't discern the difference between a 110-pound woman with a coin purse,
here's my question to you, Heather. You were a paramedic, okay? So you don't think a 110-pound woman on meth could do any damage to a guy?
Are you accusing her being on meth?
No, I'm just saying. We don't know what she's on. We don't know if there's anything there. We don't have any idea. But you're saying that 110...
Wow. Talk about a bad faith hyperbolic argument being made in a devil's advocate fashion to avoid processing. Again, anything he says here, the things that he's saying here do not appear to be in service of providing a more accurate report. It's more in line of actually just arguing against the points of the complaint submission.
110-pound woman can't do anything to anybody.
I didn't say that.
What you said.
That's not what I said at all. And again, you're putting words in my mouth.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm trying to ask the question. You're saying that she's a 110-pound woman. That is not even mentioned in here. Nothing doesn't mention that. So let me finish, please, without interruption, if I could, for just a minute. Okay? She is a small, petite woman. She relays that she was on the square, and he drove up in his own personal vehicle, which has tinted windows. He is someone who is always armed and always has, tactical gear at his disposal. And she relayed that she felt scared by the way that he drove up and kind of parked a little cockeyed, and they had words between them. And yet, he related as if he was attacked. He says he was reminded of, shades of LA. That is kind of implying that there was way more to that than there was. That we have a concern about as well, because why? If he is really believing that he is in as much danger as the people in LA by a woman holding a coin purse, when it's fully light outside on our square, and she is someone who is not even that close to him, and she's outside and he's safely in his vehicle, and then he posts that as if he was in mortal danger. But sets off that kind of... You do the same thing, Heather, as far as you saying that people that drive by your protests and honk their horns are are all racist because they honk their horns when they drive past your protests.
No, we're saying, I say all white people are racist, because all white people have racial bias, yes. Okay? I'm saying the people who drive past, but again, this is not about me and our protest.
Have you or have you not posted signs of people, or posted trucks where they have a Trump sign in the back? I'm asking you the question because you're holding him to a standard that you feel that you should be holding
him to a standard as a paid law enforcement professional. I'm a volunteer of a volunteer org.
Okay. I'm just trying to see the double standard that is here, Heather. I think there's a double standard here.
I think we're done.
Okay, good enough.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. So let's talk about the last 2 points there. In an area that is not LA, very rural area, worrying about one person basically talking about property is basically what was happening there, at least from the description, as posing a risk to an officer's well-being, and equivocating that with the post that was made where censoring of people who were trying to distinguish between who made what statements, which is important for avoiding any sort of mistargeting, as well as the people who are basically saying show up strapped, or be there strapped, or have your gun on you, or we need concealed carry, as relevant statements to the post, and not being redacted, and trying to pose some equivalency between those, strikes me as very bad faith. The notion of this parodying standard, again, is very much the same type of thing, trying to say that those are the same actions. The posting, or the mention of a Trump flag as some sort of parody in all of this, and I'm using parity, is interesting, because the town of Pekin, Illinois, I was present at the protest there. There was a truck that drove by the protest numerous times with a Trump flag and a Confederate flag. And their impact on the protesters, I was in that crowd, was generally incitement. The Pekin police didn't want to have to deal with that being unmitigated. And you know what they did? In Pekin, Illinois, well known to be a sundown town, they fined the motorist who had the Trump and Confederate flag. It's reported in their local newspaper. It's a very good clip. So that brings us back to this police officer's conduct. I don't know what much more there is to add. I have checked my clock, and to my dismay, it is 1 a.m. Central. So I'm going to end it there, but I will consider that to be a reasonable set of perceptions on this, where I had not seen the entire video beforehand or anything like that, as presented again by white male who has had quite a few engagements with police. But yeah, I'm gonna have a rough night. I'm not exactly happy to have experienced that, but you know, I don't know anybody who would be. So I went ahead and did that. Have a good night for everybody who's stayed through watching, and stay safe. And if there are any additional things that come up, I don't claim to be an entertainer or anything like that. But if you need somebody to speak up, I mean, I'll do that if you think that that's appropriate. I just want to be clear that advocates who are much more familiar with your local community may be able to say much more. And so, that said, it's still important for people to speak up when asked. And again, like this is all tough because, you know, for a non-police union person, some of the this is when I go past all of the backhanded remarks that were made. It would technically be defensible for that non-police union person to have something happen outside of work hours. It would have to be quite severe for it to go in there. But again, it's different for public figures, and it was not contested that the police officer being discussed, whose name was removed from the audio of the video, it was not contested that he was a public person. So I don't know a heck of a lot about public people, but that distinction was not debated by the police officer. That standard of public persons was not debated, while many, many other things were. And, you know, it could be in the best possible interpretation, which I do not believe, but in the best possible interpretation, it would be somebody who does not want to go up against the police union for anything other than a slam dunk because of how influential they may be in local politics. So no matter which of the ways that it's looked at, whether it's an individual operating in bad faith trying to stop the processing of a complaint or stop the acceptance of a complaint and rather ensure its rejection by avoiding additional engagement in that process, or not wanting to deal with the political repercussions of trying to hold someone within a union accountable, within a police union accountable, more precisely. Either of those two were not great. So yeah, remember to defund your local police and have services to protect people, in particular domestic violence support and ending chronic homelessness. There's only one city in the entirety of Illinois that has on paper eliminated chronic homelessness. I regret to say that I have gotten in contact with some people who live in that community, Rockford, Illinois, who say that there are still significant problems, and it would lead them to basically say that maybe they don't deserve that classification of ending chronic homelessness. But they're still leagues away from, or leagues better than where most places are, to my understanding, and that funding could be put to better use if the police are indeed mostly responding to domestic violence in all these different communities. So yeah, look at your municipal elections, look at the people who are involved, and ask them very frankly, will you end chronic homelessness? Will you close gaps in survivor supportive services such as domestic violence abuse shelters, and in addition to the right to housing that you need for ending chronic homelessness? And ask them what they're willing to do that, to get there, and if that involves the police budget being reduced. All right. Have a good night, everybody.